It's Mathis Nicolau. Mathis Nicolau sounds like he invented something back in the 1700s that helped us turn on the lights or something. Versus Tim Elliot, the guy that sounds like he's flipping burgers at your local McDonald's. We got the scientist versus the burger flipper. Hello and welcome to Monkey Knife Fight Live, folks. I'm Connor Rowntree as always, and that is AJ Schullo, folks. That means we're talking a little MMA today. AJ, how are you off the top of the show here?
Doing terrific. UFC Vegas 39 is on tap here, and early start time. We're talking beforehand, 1:30 Eastern time. So good time to get the day started, watch some games, and then get right into these football games, or excuse me, these MMA contests rather. You can already tell where my mind's going here. But yeah, a headliner, strawweight fight. Two ranked fighters. Winner of this fight could make a case for a title shot right after. We got some other good fights on tap as well, so looking forward to it.
Well, AJ said it, folks. It is an early show, so make sure you keep on tuning into Monkey Knife Fight before all that action gets going on Saturday. And we want to just thank everybody who's been subscribing to the channel. We had our best month to date in September. So don't forget to subscribe to Monkey Knife Fight's YouTube channel, folks. Get all of your MKF and picks right there. UFC, NFL. We were doing MLB and golf even. We kind of do it all, folks. So make sure you head on over, and the content schedule is always there in the description box below. Now, AJ, you mentioned it. We got a couple ladies headlining the card. You don't always see that. We were talking about it before coming on to air, and it's nice to see a couple of up-and-coming prospects in that women's strawweight division getting the chance to shine in that main event slot. I mean, between the two girls, there's only 2 losses. So I think they've earned the shot and they've earned the right to be here. Now, Marina Rodriguez, I mean, not too much to say about her. She's got an insane output in that division, and she's been knocking girls out. Where Mackenzie Dern, on the other hand, she just grapples like a spider monkey. What is it now? Four consecutive wins, and 4 out of her last 6 fights in the UFC have come by, or 4 out of the last 6 victories, pardon me, have come by way of submission victory. AJ, how do you see this one playing out? Because for me, it's going to be 2 extremely talented fighters. And I don't know which one of these girls' game plans is going to take the forefront in this fight, because you get the pressure from Dern being able to pop. You got the size and the reach, the size and the reach of Marina Rodriguez going pop. And then you got Dern being able to catch those punches, take your back, and put you to sleep with a submission. How do you see this one, AJ?
Well, funnily enough, Mackenzie Dern actually grapples better than a spider monkey, as she does hold a win over Ashley Spider Monkey Yoder. Back in her UFC debut. So fun fact for you there.
Mic drop moment.
Yep. But I get what you mean. Yeah, Mackenzie, as credentials as you could get pretty much as a submission grappler. So decorated in terms of like the medals she's accomplished. She's as good as you get. I mean, she just takes these opposition down, and then when she's on the ground, she's able to submit. Most of her UFC wins are by submission. She's a legit threat to even competent grapplers from their back. We saw that against Nina Nunes last time out. The problem though with Dern's game is I think she's an improving fighter. She is evolving, doing a lot of work with Jason Perillo, but she still only lands takedowns 0.51 takedowns per 15 minutes with 10% accuracy. Now she's coming off of a fight where she took down Nina Nunes, which is impressive. Maybe she is improving, but I'd like to see a little bit more consistency out of Dern in terms of her wrestling game. Because on the feet, like you said, Marina's a little longer, a little rangier, the better striker in my opinion. And she should be able to pick apart Dern over the course of 15 minutes. She should even get a stoppage. So it's a binary fight because Rodriguez's issues have come when she's been put on her back. She struggles to scramble. She has gotten mounted in the past, like against Cynthia Calvillo, allowed dominant rounds. I just don't have a lot of trust in Dern's wrestling game to get the fight to the ground with consistency. And that's kind of what she might need, only 1 takedown and get a sub. But I just don't have a lot of faith in Dern doing that because of her historical takedown reputation. And Marina's not a bad takedown defender by any means, 62%. She's been taken down by some good wrestlers in the past, and she's very dangerous from the outside. So Dern being able to close the distance, she's going to have to take some big shots by Marina that might make her think twice, as Michelle Waterson did. So switching over to the Monkey Knife Fight side of things, this fight is projected to go about 12 and a half minutes, maybe even a little bit less based on the projection that we have here. And when you take the significant strikes landed per minute from each fighter and then divide it by the striking accuracy, you get the number of significant strikes that they attempt on a per minute basis. And when you take that and then multiply it by each fighter's respective striking defense, you actually get a computation. I'll leave it up for the listeners to get the exact amount of less for Marina Rodriguez, 68.5, and less for Mackenzie Dern at 56.5. So even though those thresholds there aren't that big, and we are talking about significant strikes versus total strikes, I don't think there's going to be a lot of clinch control, not a lot of grappling, as I do trust Marina's takedown defense to keep it upright. And I do think we see this fight go less and less because of the projected fight time combined with their striking stats.
Wow, broke it down from every which angle, AJ. I love it. Another thing to note, though, with Marina Rodriguez, right? You talked about her striking. She went toe-to-toe with Watterson, the karate hottie, and outstruck her 125-88 in significant strikes and the one takedown. And it all comes down for me is that takedown. Can Mackenzie Dern get that takedown? We saw Carla Esparza get 5 takedowns and beat Marina Rodriguez up and get the win. We saw Cynthia Calvillo, as you said, get 3 takedowns. They had the mixed decision tie. So it all comes down. And then Randa Marcos actually took Marina Rodriguez down twice as well and battled to a split decision tie. And now she's only lost once in her career in those 2 draws. Everything else has been a win. You see knockout wins on her record. For me, I think I have to lean towards the underdog in Marina Rodriguez because of her boxing prowess, because of the fact that she's longer, and because from what I've seen, she's stronger and she's fought the tougher opponents in the UFC. Now, I really don't like to use that as a candle to hold to other fighters, but when you're fighting Cynthia Calvillo and you're fighting, Michelle Watterson and Carlo Esparza and Tisha Torres, people that had previously fought for belts and or champions in their own right, and Mackenzie Dern's won 4 fights in a row. Nina Nunes, that's a good win. Nina Nunes is a good win, but that's also Nina Nunes coming off having a baby. So it's just, I think Dern has the least competent record. I'm agreeing with you that I don't see how she can get to the ground, but I think if she does get to the ground, she'll have success. I just don't see a lot of success coming in, and I'm going, everything you just said makes so much sense to me, AJ, but I feel like these girls are just going to be swinging because I don't see the takedowns coming, and I kind of see it going the distance, right? I think it might go the 5 rounds with how I've seen these girls fight in their previous fights outside of Dern's last fight with the finish, but she went to the decision against Vima Jarbina, and I'm going more and more. I have to go against you on this one, AJ. I just think they're going to hang in there, and I think the striking is going to be the prominent figure after Dern's wrestling just doesn't come to fruition for her. So I think we see the fight going the same way. I think we have Marina Rodriguez for the upset, but I'm going with the more and the more, and AJ's riding the less and the less. Any counterpoints to that, AJ? Because it looks like I put a little thought in the mind of the Wolverine down there.
I mean, I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense because eye test wise, both women are very tough. But it's like I still have to factor in the stats to some extent, and they do both have finishing capabilities. Dern has some power on the feet. She's aggressive. Marina obviously has that knockout win over Ribas. She was even able to hurt some other fighters in the past as well. So I could see the argument for a finish. I could also see the argument so it plays out. It's just one of those things. It's like something's got to give. They're both capable finishers, but they're also tough. So which one is it got to be? I'm going to lean that their finishing prowess, both on the ground and on the feet, takes over here, and they get a finish within 12 and a half minutes.
Nice. Yeah, I think they're actually going to go long, and I think Dern's going to win it. I think Rodriguez is going to win it in the later rounds, possibly by a finish if Dern gets to gassing and or maybe a judge's scorecard, because I just think these two girls are going to be tough as nails. But either way, though, we're projecting this to be one heck of a fight. AJ's got a finish. I got it going long and then a finish or down to a decision. So, folks, guess what? That looks like a banger as a main event on Monkey Knife Fight Live for Saturday night. Getting into the co-main event, you got Jared Gooden and Randy Brown going toe-to-toe, some guys with some serious knockout power. Both men love to strike and average right around 10 minutes of octagon time. Gooden landing over 5 significant strikes per minute while absorbing over 7. I like Randy Brown by knockout in this fight. The question is, do they stay in there long enough to punch each other 51 and a half times? Does Gooden stay in there long enough? I don't think so. I think Randy Brown's going to get in there. Randy Brown, not the most finishes. Gooden coming off of a first-round knockout. I'm taking Randy Brown, and I'm taking the less and less on Monkey Knife Fight.
Yeah, I think what you're saying logically makes sense. Fight is projected to go roughly 10 minutes. Again, roughly, not exactly, but when you factor in that and also just kind of the same computation we did in the last fight, the significant strikes divided by the accuracy, multiplied by the other fighter's defense, you actually get a less on the Randy Brown side of things, and then you get a more on the Jared Gooden side of things, even with the 10 minutes into consideration, because for Randy Brown, he doesn't absorb a lot of head strikes because he's just such a long and rangy guy, 6'3". But he does absorb a lot of leg strikes, and Gooden does throw. He'll attack the legs often. Brown is really susceptible to them. He's got like thinner legs. He struggled with them against Luque, against Oliveira.
Mhm.
I mean, for statistical reference, Luque went 26 of 28. That is like mind-boggling for a fight that went less than 10 minutes. So I think just based on purely the stats, I would have to go with the less on Brown and more on Gooden. Though I could see your argument. Theoretically, there could be a finish from really either guy. I think Brown could knock out Gooden, but I also think Gooden could knock out Brown. Brown's been knocked out in the past more than once. Gooden's got some power, as we know from his last fight. So as far as a prediction goes, I feel obligated to pick Brown as the better guy that is more likely to win minutes, better range fighter, I think. But again, a slight disagreement. I'm going to go with the more on the Gooden just based on the pure numbers aspect side of this fight. Though I do think that from an eye test, stylistically, again, based on that finishing capability of both guys, we could see it go less. So I wouldn't be surprised if you're right on both counts here, but I'm going to go with less on Brown and more on Gooden.
Yeah, I think what comes down for me, AJ, is the prowess just coming into the fight. It seems Gooden obviously coming off that first minute knockout victory, or first 2 minutes, pardon me, minute 7 in. And then Randy Brown, I mean, you just said it. His last 2 losses were both knockouts, one to Vicente Luque and the other one to Nico Price, who looked great on Saturday night, by the way. Good work there, AJ. We broke that one down nicely. But when we get back to this fight, I really think the facts that Randy Brown is a little bit more well-rounded will come to fruition. I don't think you can get hit like absorbing 7.5 significant strikes per minute against Randy Brown is going to lead to either CTE or a very quick finish. So I don't think Jared Gooden is just going to be able to hang in there. I think Randy Brown's fought the better competition again. I don't like using that as a marker, but I think at the end of the day, it does help you when you're putting these guys into separate classes. And I think Randy Brown is just a step above Jared Gooden in his abilities inside the octagon. So that's why I'm leaning towards Randy Brown. AJ, what do you think of that take?
I don't see anything wrong with it. I think that, when you factoring in provenness to handicapping, I think is definitely something that's in the ingredients. I mean, who you fought, who you beaten, your reputation, that all is a factor. And that is one of the reasons why I'm factoring in Brown as the favorite as well. But stylistic, I don't think Gooden's a bad fighter. A brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a decent wrestler as well. But again, I still do favor Brown. I think he's, while I do think it's possible Gooden knocks out Brown can knock out Gooden too. I've seen Gooden hurt on the regionals. He was also rocked by Alan Jouban and Nurmagomedov in his fouling fight. So, could see it go both ways there, but yeah, I think that Brown is the rightful favorite.
That's almost like a setup for the Knockout Kings. But we got one more fight to look at before we get into the Knockout Kings. It's Mathis Nicolau. Mathis Nicolau sounds like he invented something back in the 1700s that helped us turn on the lights or something. Versus Tim Elliot, the guy that sounds like he's flipping burgers at your local McDonald's. We got the scientist versus the burger flipper. Oh gosh. I hope the fighters don't watch this, or otherwise I'm going to get knocked out by Tim Elliott.
Connor, you definitely have the height on both these guys and the reach.
Oh, yes, I definitely do. But, UFC fighter, guy sitting in an office on a Wednesday afternoon talking to his best friend, AJ Schullo, about fighting. Little bit different.
I'm taking Connor in the Knockout Kings.
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm taking Tim Elliott. Look at that haircut. The guy looks like a serial killer in the picture, folks. And both men have gone to distance in 2 out of the last 3 fights. Now, an important stat to note, if you go on and look at significant strikes landed, it looks like Tim Elliott is one of the most inactive fighters on the UFC roster. Case in point, his last fight out, he landed 21 significant strikes, but totaled 91 strikes. I think Nicolau is a better striker, but he's never been finished he's never finished a fight before the third round in the octagon, pardon me. So I'm leaning to the more and more on both these guys as I see the clinch strikes coming into play. And I think it could be long and drawn out with when you're talking featherweights. AJ?
Yeah, what I'm about to say here could look like a bad take, but again, I'm going with the stats here because I think that what you said again makes sense from a process-oriented perspective. Elliot he will pitter patter you with strikes in the clinch and on the ground. Those non-significant strikes, like that is his wheelhouse. However, there is some credence to the fact that Elliot maybe just doesn't want to play around on the ground with Nicolau. A really good submission grappler, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And I do think that there is definitely no secret that James Krause is a very smart coach. He comes in with a good game plan to his fighters. And I think that there's just a chance that he tells Elliot to stay on the feet, outwork Nicolau, who's mainly a counter striker, who does have issues with output at times, and kind of win based on being busier on the feet. Now, I do think that Elliot could try and take him down. Don't know a ton about Nicolau's takedown defense. It says 100%, but really when you look up and down his record, nobody's actually tried to like take him down with a ton of urgency like Elliot could. And then going back onto the logic of this fight could easily play out for 15. I do like the less and less here. You know, when I'll put like actually a number to the narrative here. So if you take the significant strikes, divided by the accuracy, multiplied by Elliot's striking defense, you get 44.82 for Nicolau. And then if you do the inverse scenario for Elliot, you get 36.85. So those are comfortably less and less. Again, that's significant and not total, and that is the risk. But I'm more so banking on the fact that we see less grappling here than say we did in other Elliot fights, out of respect for Nicolau's jiu-jitsu. And on the flip side, with Nicolau, he's not really an aggressive takedown lander. Only 1.93 takedowns landed per 15 minutes. Against John Moraga, he didn't even go for a takedown. Moraga's shown questionable takedown defense in the past. So again, this is like this isn't a fight I have as good of a read on as say the previous two we talked about, but statistically, I'm going to still go with the under here. But I don't think it's going to be a scenario where it's going to be like more or less for either guy here. I think it's going to be either less, or more. So one of us is going to be right, I think. I'm going to just bank on the numbers here. I think your narrative makes a ton of sense, though, based on how Elliot typically fights.
Yeah, when I was looking at the Tim Elliott and the Nicolau fight, I really like to look at, their previous gas tank, the previous 3 fights, I think are really good indicators. And when I was looking at Nicolau, I see that he's gone to distance in 2 out of his last 3 fights. And in those fights, he's gone to distance. He's actually secured the over 70 and a half strikes. Now, not significant strikes, just strikes. Actually, in his last fight against Cape, he finished with 76 on the dot through a 15-minute fight, right? So not a ton of output, as you said, but what I really think it could come down to is the fact that, I'm reading it the exact same way you are, that both men are going to respect each other's ground games, and we might just see some flurry shots come in, and that's why I actually like the more, because I think we're going to see the more and the more on both of them, because I think we're going to see these guys maybe open it up a bit. If it's a close fight, the third round comes around, how many times do we see that when there's 10 significant strikes landed for each guy in the second? They go into the corner and coach goes, we need you to win this round. Then they come out and go 30 and 30 apiece. I think that's what I'm kind of gauging. I'm gauging a fun fight for the fans, and I'm gauging it to go long. I do think it goes to distance, and I do think both these guys show a tremendous amount of heart on Saturday night. That's why I have to go with the more and more when just from what I've seen from these guys. And then obviously just going to distance. I mean, Tim Elliott, as I said before, with the pitter patter strikes, those all come from being on top. But even if they're standing on the feet, take some time. Maybe it's a soft one and then the tough 2 behind it. You never know. Sorry, AJ, I'm not trying to punch you in the face. Set it up on the camera there. So I have to stick with the more and more. I have to stick with it.
I think it makes sense. I mean, the non-significant strikes are the most difficult projection to come about. Basically, it's either in the clinch or on the ground from grappling. In open space, those are usually where we see most of the significant strikes get credit. So I think what you're saying makes a ton of sense. If these 2 are grappling or in the clinch, this is gonna be one of those bad takes that does not age very well. But on your side of things, it'll go well. So again, it's striking versus grappling. Yeah.
Yeah, but then if they don't do that and then they stand on the feet and it goes less, then you look like a genius and I look like the clown. Guess what, folks? One of us is going to be right. It's not very often that you and I go against each other on every one of the 3 picks that we're breaking down. And I think that really adds just to show you how much fun this card is. Like, there's a lot of young prospects, a lot of names that I think a lot of casual fans won't know. And then a lot of serious fans are looking forward to seeing fight. And one of those, getting into the Knockout Kings now, one of those names that I'm excited to see fight is Phil Haas. 4-fight win streak, has a pair of KOs and 6 takedowns in his last 2 fights. We talked about it, I think, on last week's show or a couple weeks ago, that I loved Phil Haas wrestling. I think he takes this fight to the canvas and pounds out a victory. My first Knockout King pick is Phil Haas.
I love Phil Haas too. You know, when you look at the type of match that he's in against Dern Win, I think it's a great match for Haas. Much larger, also a really good wrestler. He's a dangerous striker, 7 inches of reach. And when you look at Wynn's record, you know, he actually hasn't been knocked out professionally. However, he was hurt by Eric Spicely, and he was knocked down by Gerald Mearshart prior to getting submitted. That's in the stats. So Haas is very, very dangerous. He's got 2 knockdowns in the Contender Series in his UFC career combined. Dangerous, athletic guy. I think he's got the potential here to go out and get a finish against Dern Win, if not even a TKO stoppage on the ground. So I like your pick there.
Yeah, I feel it's the path to victory, right? That's what we always talk about in the Knockout Kings, and Phil Haas is a path to victory that I see of takedown, ground and pound. There could be an opportunity for a submission, but whenever you have the takedown opportunity with a guy that likes the ground and pound, I'll take that, especially in a favorable fight. What do you think of this one? Alexander Romanov, 8 takedowns across 3 UFC fights, 2 submission wins, 14-0, and I like him to go 15-0 on Saturday night. We saw Vandura get taken down 3 times by Spivak, pardon me. I think Romanov gets the takedowns, going another ground and pound finish in this one, AJ. Possible submission again. We know Romanov likes to use the submissions, but when I'm seeing how like 8 takedowns in 3 UFC fights versus a guy that got taken down 3 times by Spivak, yeah, I'm gonna assume that Romanov's gonna spend some time on top, raining down some elbows.
Yeah, we saved our agreeing for the Knockout Kings here because I like Romanov as well. Yeah, he could theoretically get a submission, but at least when we're backing him, he's putting himself in a position to get a finish. A really physical wrestler from Moldova, and Vandera, like you said, got taken down 3 times on 3 attempts by Spivak and finished with ground and pound. Romanov's much more physical and aggressive than Spivak is. So he's got that very aggressive ground and pound from out. I think that King Kong goes out here after fresh off of his victory against Godzilla, gets a stoppage victory here against Jared Vandera via ground and pound.
Wow. I love that take. Our third and final pick. So for me, I'm just leaning towards Randy Brown and the experience in that co-main event. I think one of those guys is going to drop. And I think Randy Brown has a more complete game. If he wants to take it down, I could see possibilities in there doing so because of how attack heavy, Jared Gooden is on his feet. So I'm going to just punch in Randy Brown as my third and final pick. AJ, who is your third and final pick for the Knockout Kings?
Yeah, I'm going to pivot over to Steve Garcia, actually. First fight of the night, taking on Charlie Ontiveros. And
Nice.
Garcia is a guy that I don't think he particularly has a high ceiling in the UFC, but what he does is he's an aggressive finisher that has some power. And when you look at Ontiveros' professional record, he's actually been stopped via strikes in every single one of his losses. There's been some injuries in there, unfortunately, but he's been knocked out. I don't think he has good striking defense. And he's a guy that I would say relies on being long and rangy, but if you crash the pocket on him, like Garcia probably will, you could hurt him. He just doesn't have good head movement. So I'm going to go with Steve Garcia here to round it out. A little bit chalkier options, but at the end of the day, we're just going to make these predictions that we have a lot of faith in. And this is, these are 3 that each of us have a lot of faith in. Your last one, of course, is Brown. I think that makes sense. And I think Garcia makes sense too. And obviously we agree on Romanov and Haas. So just going to go with where it makes sense logically. I'm not going to overthink this. I'm going to go with Steve Garcia Jr. as my last pick.
Yeah, we've been pretty solid on the Knockout Kings platform. We got 2 last week, and remember, the only reason we didn't get one last week is because some way, somehow, there wasn't a finish in that main event from last week. But I tip my cap, sir. You did kill it. Diego Santos stood in there. He looked good, and he did enough to outbox Johnny Walker. That was for sure. AJ, any other picks that you want to look at for the people at home on Monkey Knife Fight for this card coming on Saturday night?
Well, I'd just like to say about that main event prediction, I kind of wish I was wrong there. I was just hoping that there would be a finish. I didn't think it would play out quite like that. But
I actually, I kind of saw that from Santos, and I was like, hey, Johnny Walker, go blitz him. All right. Okay. I guess Johnny Walker just respected his power, and rightfully so. So, yeah, I was expecting there to be a little more fireworks in that one for sure. Johnny Walker let me down.
Oh, man, it was just such a letdown main event. But, pivoting over to one more fight, Sabina Mazo and Maria Agapova. Pretty interesting matchup here against two young prospects that come from really powerhouse gyms. I mean, Agapova is American Top Team. Mazo is Kings MMA. These two are, touted prospects, I guess you could say. I know that they're both coming off some losses here. However, I'm not ready to write off prospects after some early defeats. An early defeat might be the best thing for them in their career. Max Holloway lost twice when he first came to the UFC. Dustin Poirier lost early. Robert Whittaker. I mean, you could still lose, and it could be good for you long term. It could just force you to go back to the drawing board, get better.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. It's not the end of the world. And before I kick it over to you, it's just I kind of like Mazo here. I do. I feel like I could trust her more. I like her volume more in a 15-minute fight. I do respect the aggressive finishing threat that Agapova brings both on the feet and on the ground. But I like Mazo's chances to survive and potentially even have some grappling success of her own here. So I do like Mazo as far as a prediction goes. I think that her volume bodes well even for Monkey Knife Fight. 6.56 significant strikes landed per minute. That is great. 131 against Quiche, 118 against Aldrich, 108 against Dobson. So I like Sabina Mazo in this matchup.
Yeah, I think one other name that you like, not to criticize you for missing out on, but just for the fans at home, right? Look at Charlie Olives. Guy was cut by the promotion. Now the reigning lightweight champion of the world, right? So a couple losses really don't mean much. And another name that really gets me going too, a personal inspiration is look what Jimmy Manawa did. He didn't start training in mixed martial arts till he was 25 years old. By 32, he was a contender. That is one of those stories that I just absolutely love. So nothing too wrong with taking a step back or starting late, folks. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, one fight that I just want to take a look at quick was the Alexander Romanov fight versus Jared Vanderaa, just because on Monkey Knife Fight, I love the lines, and it's less and less for me. I think Romanov's going to take him down and smash him out, like we said, for the Knockout Kings picks, and I don't think Vanderaa is going to get to 28.5 strikes landed. So that's my side of that, folks. AJ, any final thoughts before we get out of here today?
No, sir. I think we crushed it. What friendly reminder for everybody listening, please feel free to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We appreciate your guys' viewership. However, please feel free to hit that sub button. We'd really like that. So cheers and good luck, everybody.
Yeah, I mean, AJ did the more polite way. Sign up now, or I will find you. We will. Folks, I'm Connor Rowntree. That's AJ Schullo, a.k.a. The Wolverine. Make sure you subscribe, or we're sending the Wolverine after you. Make sure you enjoy the fights on Saturday night. And remember to hit it.